Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on some of the most important, but maybe least understood heroes of the digital world, the guardians of data. But first, let me ask you something. What do you think a company's most valuable asset really is? I'll give you a hint. It's not the buildings, it's not the fancy equipment. In our world, it's something you can't even touch. All right, let's dive in. To really get this, we have to start with a super important distinction. You see, we throw around the words data and information like they're the same thing, but they're not even close. Okay, so think of data as just raw facts, a long list of every single sale made last Tuesday. By itself, it's just a jumble of numbers. It doesn't tell you much. But when you process that data, when you analyze it to find the patterns, that's when it becomes information. Suddenly you can see your best-selling product or what your busiest time of day is. Now that's something you can use to make smart decisions. But here's the catch. The quality of your information is only as good as the data you start with. And a huge problem is what we call dirty data. Data that's just wrong. It could be a simple typo in an address that causes a package to get lost, or maybe a misplaced decimal point in a financial report. These tiny errors can have massive consequences and totally wreck your decision-making. So, this is the whole game right here. It all starts with us, the end users, interacting with a system, buying something online, using an app. That generates a ton of raw data. The system then crunches that data, turning it into useful information. And it's that information that allows an organization to make better, smarter decisions. Honestly, in today's world, this flow is the key to survival. So how do we actually manage all this data? I mean, for a long time, the answer was, well, not very well at all. This chaos led to a major shift in thinking, and a clear winner emerged for how to handle data.
Before databases became the standard, companies just used a bunch of separate files. But this created what people in the field call islands of information. Imagine the same customer's address stored in 10 different files across the company. It was a mess. If they moved, you had to update it everywhere. The database approach completely changed the game. It created one central place for the data, which cut down on all that repetition and made everything so much easier to manage.
And this quote just nails it. The big revolution was something called the relational model back in 1970. It was like going from a clunky old manual transmission car to a smooth automatic. Suddenly, you didn't have to be some kind of super genius programmer to get the information you needed. It made data accessible to way more people, and it was a total game changer.
So, with this powerful new system in place, a new kind of professional was needed. A guardian, really, for what had become the organization's most valuable asset.
And that person is the database administrator, or as you'll almost always hear it, the DBA. You've probably heard the term before, but what do they actually do all day?
At its heart, the DBA is the one person with the keys to the entire digital kingdom. They're in charge of that big, centralized, shared database we've been talking about. It's a job that comes with a pretty massive amount of responsibility.
And because of that, it takes a really unique mix of skills. You have to be a technical whiz, fluent in database languages like SQL. But you also have to be a manager who can plan and set policy. And on top of that, you need to be great with people to support everyone in the company. It's way more than just a tech job. It's a real leadership role.
Probably the easiest way to understand what a DBA does is to think of them as wearing 3 different hats, depending on what needs to get done.
So here they are, the 3 main roles. When they put on their managerial hat, they're thinking big picture, like creating a bulletproof backup and recovery plan. When they put on their technical hat, they're down in the weeds, tweaking the system to make a slow program run faster. And with their end-user support hat on, they're the friendly face helping a coworker get the exact data they need for a report.
Now, under that managerial hat, the DBA has to deal with 2 ideas that get mixed up all the time: security and privacy. Think of it this way. Security is how you protect the data. It's the locks on the door, the alarm system. Privacy, on the other hand, is about the rights to that data. It's about deciding who gets a key to the door and what they're allowed to do once they're inside. They're different, but they're totally connected.
And this brings us to what is, without a doubt, one of the most critical parts of the DBA's job today: protecting that digital vault from a constantly growing list of threats.
So, to protect the vault, you first have to understand the dangers. A vulnerability is just a weak spot in your defenses, like a cracked window. A threat is the burglar who spots that cracked window and decides to try and get in. And these threats can be totally intentional, like a hacker, or they can be completely accidental, like a well-meaning employee who just deletes the wrong thing. A DBA has to be ready for all of it.
And here's a peek at how they fight back. For those tricky social engineering emails, the best defense is a 1-2 punch of smart tech like spam filters and, just as important, educating users. For straight-up hacker attacks, you're talking firewalls and systems that watch for intruders. And for that constant risk of data getting corrupted, the absolute last line of defense is a rock-solid, well-tested backup and recovery plan.
But here's the most important thing to remember. The real goal isn't to get really good at cleaning up a disaster after it happens. The best security plan is all about making sure the disaster never happens in the first place. It's about making sure data is preserved, not just recovered. Prevention is absolutely everything.
So the next time you use your banking app, check your health records online, or post on social media, just take a second to think about the DBA. So much of our lives, our money, our health, our memories, it all lives inside a database. So it's worth asking yourself, do you have any idea who's standing guard